Well, hello everybody and welcome back. Today I'm going to give you my top 5 tips and tricks for rock tumbling. Now, rock tumbling is a great and fun hobby, and there's lots of little nuances within this hobby that can make or break the beautiful shine for your rocks. And let's be honest, rock tumbling takes a long time. So if you want to make sure that you didn't waste a month of your life waiting on beautiful rocks that maybe didn't turn out so beautiful, stick around and I'll show you my top 5 tips and tricks. And remember, if you like this kind of content, make sure you give this video a big ol' thumbs up. And if you're new here, consider subscribing to this channel. I make new videos like this every single week, so let's get started. Now, when you're first beginning your rock tumbling journey, there are lots of things that you may or may not know, and one that I think is the most important if you want to save yourself some trouble in the future. And that is to never pour your grit down the drain. So when you're done with each stage in your tumbling process, you're going to have this leftover slurry of grit and water, and sometimes people think that, oh, well, it's just water and some grit. I can pour it down my drain. Now, this is a very bad idea. If you do that, it can clog your pipes. And once that grit hardens, it almost turns into like a concrete type mixture. So you really don't want it down your drain. So instead of dumping your grit down the drain, I would suggest dumping it outside somewhere that grass doesn't grow or a place that you're not really worried about kind of ruining what's underneath. So I like to dump mine in my landscaping rock. Other people will dump theirs, maybe on like a gravel pile that they have or places like that. One thing I like about this is it prevents weeds from growing, so one less area that I have to de-weed. The second tip that I have for you is to always do a burnish cycle or a wash cycle. So these words kind of get thrown together interchangeably. You can call it a burnish cycle or a wash cycle. I usually call it a wash cycle. Most of the time people call it a burnish cycle when it's the very last step that you do, like right when you're done tumbling after you're done with your polish stage. But basically what you want to do here is in between each of your stages of grit, you're going to want to wash your rocks of the previous grit. This is really important because you don't want to carry the grit from one cycle into the next. If you mix the grits, this can leave your rocks looking dull and not end up having that beautiful shine that you're looking for in the end. There are lots of different ways that you can do this wash cycle. Some people use borax, ivory soap, dish soap. I've used all 3 of these methods. I would say my least favorite is probably the ivory soap. It kind of seemed to leave like a weird texture left over on my rocks, but it seems like the borax and the dish soap are pretty comparable in how they wash your rocks, so I would choose between one of those. In order to do this wash cycle, you're going to want to dump out your rocks into some sort of strainer, wash them off really good with water first, and try to get as much grit as you can off during that first wash. Then, once you've kind of wash them and scrub them really good, you're going to put them back into your tumbler barrel, and you're going to fill your tumbler back up with water just to about the line of your rocks, and add some soap. If you're going to use ivory soap, you would take a knife and shave off the amount that you want into the barrel. If you're going to use dish soap, I usually did just a small squirt or maybe a few drops of dish soap, and borax you're going to want to do 1 tablespoon per pound of rocks. Then you're going to let it tumble for between 6 to 24 hours. Then after that time has elapsed, you can go ahead and dump everything out, rinse them out really good again, and then move on to your next grit cycle. The third rock tumbling tip that I have for you is kind of a tough one, especially for me. Now, not everybody follows this, but if you really want super smooth, glassy rocks, it's really important not to move your rocks on to the next stage until they're completely smooth. So a lot of the times tumbling guides will tell you 1 week for each cycle. However, if you don't have super smooth rocks already, you might end up spending several weeks in grit 1 before you can move on to grit 2. What you're looking for is all of the cracks to be gone, any large dents, and just an overall smooth finish on your rocks before you move them on. This really helps so that in the end you're going to end up having very beautiful shiny rocks. Also, when you wait for them to get smooth like this, there's a lot less chance of grit being transferred from one stage to the next. So although this is a hard one for me because I do like to move them on, because sometimes I can be a bit impatient, it is really important. However, some people do like having kind of texture and details in their rocks in the end, and that's great too. If you don't mind having dents or cracks in your rocks when you're done, you can leave them like that, and there are several that I leave that way too. The fourth rock hounding tip that I have for you is to never let your rocks dry out between the cycles. Now, this isn't necessarily as important between the first few cycles, but once you get to your polishing stage, which is typically your fourth cycle, so you'll go through grit 1, grit 2, grit 3, and then your polish. At that polish stage, if you let the rocks dry out with any remaining polish on them, the polish can find the microscopic cracks and little dents and things in your rock, and then once they dry, it will harden in there, causing those cracks to expand. You'll often then end up getting this white, streaky, messy looking rock in the end, which can be really disappointing, especially after spending at least a month or more on your tumbling journey. So after you are done with the polishing stage, I would recommend taking a toothbrush and really scrubbing out any of that polish that you see on your rocks before doing the burnish or the wash cycle to get out any of that remaining polish. And it's also a good idea to do more than one wash cycle once you're done with the polish stage. This can really ensure that you're getting out any of that polish. And the fifth rock tumbling tip that I have for you has to do with the last one that we just talked about. So if you do end up getting polish remaining in your rocks and it does crack your rocks or kind of leaves them with that dull finish, don't fret, don't worry. You don't have to start over if you don't want to. What I would recommend is to use either mineral oil or baby oil on a Q-tip, and you're going to take the Q-tip and kind of rub it around all of the cracks, or you can really just kind of put it all over the rock, or you can soak your rocks in the mineral oil, and this will help to erase those polish marks on your rock. Now, I have noticed that this doesn't last forever, and after maybe a few months to about a year, sometimes that mineral oil will dry off and you'll end up kind of with some white again on your rock, but then again, you can just take that mineral oil and wipe it on your rock again. After you're done putting the mineral oil on your rock, you're going to take a microfiber cloth or a cloth of some sort and dry it off as best as you can from that oil until it's smooth to the touch and no longer greasy. Then you will have your beautiful shiny rocks back. Now, if this isn't your style and you'd prefer to start your rocks over, you can always do that too. Just remember that at each stage, you are taking off mass on the rock. So a rock that starts out this big might not be this big in the end, and it might be a lot smaller. So if your rocks are already small to begin with, it might not be a good idea to start them over again in step 1. And there you have it. Those are my top 5 rock tumbling tips and tricks. I hope that you liked this video, and if you'd like to hear more tips and tricks that I've learned throughout my rock tumbling journey, let me know in the comments below, and I'd be happy to make another video going into some greater detail on rock tumbling tips for you. If you liked this video, make sure you give it a big old thumbs up, and if you're new here, consider subscribing to this channel. I make new videos like this every single week, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!